no move-out alternatives. Call 877-332-BUGS today.
Whether it's quotes cheerfully provided over the phone or inspection results sent via email, Ecola is here to protect your home, health, and supplies from pests.
Right now might be the best opportunity to take care of things you normally don't have time for. Call 877-332-BUGS or online at termitelady.com.
Ecola, powerful termite and pest control, as gentle as a butterfly.
Serving radio listeners on the Central Coast for over 20 years. Ben Heighes and Information 9 on the Information Station, AM 1440 KUHL Santa Maria.
7:32. Thanks for tuning in to AM 1440 and FM 106.3 KUHL. We'll check more local news coming up, and as part of our local news segment here this time around, it's time to talk food with our favorite grocery gal, Amy Goldsmith. Amy's helped to launch and grow some of the most well-known brands that many of us eat or at least see on the grocery shelves. She's a food industry insider and is here to keep us updated during this unprecedented time in history. You can follow Amy and direct message her any questions through Facebook and also on Instagram at The Grocery Gal. First of all, Amy, welcome back and good morning to you.
Good morning, Ben.
Well, we had a listener call in and ask a question, so I thought we'd kind of maybe we'd kind of focus on this for a little bit, but they wanted to know what the top-selling coffee brand is in the grocery store. I'm kind of curious myself, so do you have an answer for us?
I do, Ben. I do. Now, this is ground coffee, not coffee beans or the ready-to-drink coffee, but the leading brand in a grocery store is Folgers, and it's by a landslide. So actually, Folgers is in your cup.
Yeah.
Anyway, Folgers ground coffee has more than $1 billion in sales annually, and Folgers is then followed by Maxwell House with about $475 million in sales, then Starbucks, then private label brands, and then Dunkin' Donuts. So really, Folgers has twice the sales than its closest competitor.
Wow, that's interesting. So I usually do the ground coffee. I have done the beans, and of course, if you've got a coffee grinder at home, you're in good shape. Are you a coffee drinker, Amy?
I'm actually not. I drink tea.
Okay, a lot of people do in the morning. So anyway, we're talking about a lot of coffee here. So what is the best way to store coffee?
So the greatest enemy to coffee is air, moisture, heat, and light. So to preserve your beans that are, that fresh roasted flavor, as long as possible, store them in an opaque, airtight container at room temperature. Avoid clear canisters, which allows light in, and that will compromise the taste of your coffee. And keep your beans in a dark and cool location. So even a cabinet next to the oven is often too warm, and so is the spot on the kitchen counter that can get strong afternoon sun. And the packaging that coffee comes in is generally not ideal for long-term storage. So if possible, really invest in that a really good storage container with an airtight seal. And also really try and buy the right amount of coffee because it begins to lose freshness almost immediately after roasting. So buy smaller batches of freshly roasted coffee more frequently and maybe enough for 1 or 2 weeks. And like I said, exposure to air is bad for your beans. So if you prefer to keep your beans in a pretty container on the counter, it might be a good idea to divide your coffee supply into several, like it's the smaller portions with the larger unused portion in the airtight container. And like for you, Ben, this is especially important because you're buying pre-ground coffee.
Yeah.
And that increases the exposure to oxygen. If you buy whole beans, like you said, grind the amount you need immediately before brewing, and you could store the rest in a container.
All right, that is good to know. We have grocery gal Amy Goldsmith here on KUHL. 7:36 is the time now. I've heard about people freezing their coffee beans. Is this a good idea?
Right. So there's different views on whether or not coffee should be frozen or refrigerated. And the main consideration is that coffee absorbs moisture and odors and taste from the air around it. And since it's hygroscopic, that's a bonus vocabulary word for all the coffee geeks out there, hygroscopic, which means it's readily taking up and retaining moisture. If you do refrigerate or freeze your beans, again, you need that airtight container. If you choose to freeze your coffee, quickly remove as much as you need for no more than a week at a time, like I said, and return the rest to the freezer before any condensation forms on the frozen coffee bean because it's hygroscopic and it will take up and retain the moisture and change the flavor.
All right, got to be careful with that. And I know there's a lot of controversy about this, but what about serving a scoop of coffee per water? I know at my house, I know that I have to put in 2 scoops of coffee in the coffee maker, and then I got to fill up the water level to, I believe it's 12, and I've got it perfect that way. But what is the proper ratio?
So look, it's all really personal, right? If you like something stronger or something less strong, I mean, that's the ratio. But according to the National Coffee Association, the golden ratio is 1 to 2 tablespoons of ground coffee for every 6 ounces of water. So you don't like it as strong, it sounds like.
Strong coffee is okay. I'm kind of in the middle. I think I'd be in the middle, yeah.
Okay. So this is 1 to 2 tablespoons, according to the National Coffee Association, 1 to 2 tablespoons of ground coffee for every 6 ounces of water. But remember, because it's hygroscopic and it takes up and retains moisture, it also will take on the flavor of the water. So you want to make sure you're using filtered or bottled water. If your tap water isn't good or has a strong odor or taste, such as chlorine, and if you're using tap water, let it run a few seconds before filling your coffee pot. And be sure to use cold water. Avoid distilled or softened water.
Interesting. Okay. And what about these K-Cups? I know that we've got a coffee maker here at the radio station. I'm really not familiar, though, with K-Cups.
So K-Cups are those little pods that you use in a Keurig machine, or even Nestle has their own as well. And let me preface this, like I said earlier, I'm really not a coffee drinker, so I'm here just reporting the facts, so don't shoot the messenger.
Okay.
But there are true coffee aficionados, the coffee snobs, that will thumb their nose at those K-Cups. But you can have a Keurig at work, and it's really about convenience. And Keurigs and the K-Cups, actually in the end, though, are more expensive than brewing your own coffee. But again, you're paying for that convenience. My only concern about K-Cups is they're not recyclable or biodegradable, which means they're basically sitting in a landfill until the end of time. And and Keurig says they're working on it, and they're hoping to be 100% sustainable this year. I mean, we'll see if that happens. Everything's a bit delayed right now, but really, the K-Cup's all about convenience.
Yeah, that's one of my concerns, is not being recyclable or biodegradable. So now, speaking about coffee, you can get a cup of coffee at your local restaurants here on the Central Coast. So we've been talking about what's happening in wake of COVID-19, and we're starting to open up. Some of our places around here in Santa Maria are starting to open. So what's happening there in L.A. where you are?
Well, the restaurants and hair salons, by the way, were allowed to open starting this past Saturday, May 30th, on your birthday, Ben.
That's right, yeah.
But it's been a slow start due to the protests and the curfews. So honestly, I really don't know if a restaurant has started seating people, but because I haven't really been out much since Saturday, so I'm really not totally updated on the status of the restaurants, but they are allowed to open up with half the capacity.
Okay, and I know a lot of restaurants, the one that I went to Saturday, I did go out for my birthday, since you mentioned it, with a very small group. It was my mom and my wife, and we went to a local steakhouse here, and they actually were very good about the social distancing. They require you to wear a mask. So I guess if you wear the mask and then, once you're seated in the restaurant, as long as you're like 6 feet away from other people, I guess it'd be okay.
And so were you wearing a mask while you were eating and just kind of removed it? While you were sitting there, while you were wearing a mask, and then removed it when you were eating?
When we got into the restaurant, we actually all of us were wearing masks. When we were seated, we removed our masks only because there was nobody around us. And then when the waiter came back to the table, we put our masks back on. So, I don't know if that's kind of the way to do it, but that's the way we did it.
And were they using steel forks and knives, or were they using plastic?
As far as I know, it was the regular silverware. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, I hope you had a wonderful, wonderful birthday.
I did. What did you do for your birthday, which is the day after mine?
Well, we went down to the beach and then got caught up in some of the protest traffic. We came home and barbecued, but it was just nice to have a day outside for a little bit and be with the family.
Definitely.
So that's okay. It's all good.
That's the thing that's important there, is certainly family. So anyway, Amy, of course, our Grocery Gal. You can follow Amy in direct message or any questions through Facebook and also on Instagram at The Grocery Gal. Amy, thanks for the great information. And if you've got any questions, we would love to cover those topics here with our interview with Amy on Thursdays. So keep us in mind. Amy, thanks for the great information today.
Thank you, Ben. Be well.
All right, certainly will. 741 birthdays and anniversary wishes. 928-1440 is my number.
Mount Everest is a harrowing feat, but the most dangerous part of the expedition is coming back down the mountain. You've been saving diligently for retirement, but do you have a plan for making your nest egg last? By working with a financial advisor, you may be able to consider options to see which might be the best fit